Supposed to automatically.
All right, now we are. So we have the Pledge of Allegiance and we established a quorum of the council, so we're moving on to approval of agenda. Anyone from the council would like to move anything on the agenda? Anyone from audience would like any movement of the agenda items? Seeing none, we'll come back to council for a vote on approval of the agenda.
I'm going to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Summer Doherty, seconded by Chris Curran to approve the agenda as delivered. Any further discussion from council? Anything from audience? Back to council for the vote. All those in favor of the agenda say aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes. Item 3 is our public comment section. The public is invited to present petitions, make announcements, or provide other information to the city council that is relevant to the scope of authority of the city of Blue Lake that is not on the agenda. The council may provide up to 15 minutes for this public input session. To assure that each individual presentation is heard, the council may uniformly impose time limitations of 3 minutes to each individual presentation. The public will be given the opportunity to address items on the agenda at the time the council takes up each specific agenda item. Is there anyone here for public comment? Michael Fields, thank you.
All right, I'll kick it. I only have 45 minutes prepared. No, I don't have. This will be quick. There was Del Arte had first of all thank you all for your support of Del Arte over lots and lots of time and many years. It's been really important to us and we appreciate it deeply. And we applied to the Planning Commission for an exception to the noise ordinance for 2 nights of a 1-week festival. Due to COVID regulations, we can't use the space, the Carlo. So we were hoping to use the tent from 9:30 to 11 for the Red Light Cabaret, which will have a live band. So what we had asked for was a 1-hour exception to the time, to the noise ordinance on, I think it's Friday, July 15th and Saturday, July 16th are the days. And it was denied by the Planning Commission, and we were hoping that it could be reconsidered. As many of you and all of us have, we've been hit hard by COVID this year. And so financially, this is our way of slowly making a comeback as we're having a 1-week festival. And we are trying to follow all of the rules of the County of Humboldt and the national health guidelines regarding COVID. We're doing outdoors only and the tent only, and the indoor space, we can only have up to, I think, 25 or 30% audience. So that would really hurt us pretty bad because both of those, the red lights are a pretty big seller. So in this time, we're just asking for that to be reconsidered. And on that note, I'm going to pass to my colleagues, Elizabeth Colon Nelson and Sela Aceves Wexler.
Thanks, Michael. We just wanted to also say thank you so much and to mostly just let you all know that we're having a festival this year. Thanks, Michael. Again, this year the festival is being called the Bottowat Festival. We are really working with the tribes to make sure that we come back together in right relationship. We're bringing Circus Nonsense, which is a family-friendly circus from the Bay Area. They'll be doing foot juggling of their own children and all sorts of fun events in the backyard. Michael will be showing his new piece, Mad Love, with a tribute to Tim Gray, who recently passed, Mad Summer. And so much more. Again, the cabaret, a full day of music. And we're just really excited to be able to gather again safely and with you all, this community that's been so important to us over all these years.
And I would just jump in to say that we have had some really great community support from businesses, just community members, and also from the city of Blue Lake. So just wanted to say thank you so much for that support. I'm really grateful to be working with you all on this again this year. And we are accepting volunteers. So I don't see a chat function in in this Zoom, but it would be great if we can share with you the contact information for volunteer coordinator and information for like the website and our program, just so that's available to you all in addition to maybe posters that you have. So that's
To get the word out to the community.
Mhm.
And just to reiterate, it's a 1-week festival this year. So it's just 1 week and not the full 5 that we would normally do. And again, that's due to COVID restrictions for the most part.
Yes, thanks, Michael.
Mandy, the 15th is a Thursday and the 16th is a Friday. Now, my understanding is that the noise ordinance on the weekend is 11 o'clock on Friday and Saturday night.
The cabaret is Friday and Saturday. That's my fault. It's the cabaret is the 9:30 to 11 on Friday and Saturday of that week.
The 16th and the 17th. So
This isn't a topic that we.
I know,
This is a
I know,
public
I
But
know.
just for
just to
clarification,
clarify though, that I don't see what the issue is.
well, so for clarification, it's not because of the noise ordinance, it's because they have a use permit that's been in existence for a number of years that can the event. And Gary is on also and can talk to that. And it's my understanding that the use permit was part of a lengthy process and years of working through, issues as things happen, parking in residential areas, noise, some of the impacts. And I think they've gotten to a really good place with their permit and what has been allowed and modified over the years. And there was concern about it exceeding that permit because this event is a special event. It's not just your normal, something regular that happens. So it went through a special event permit, which then turned into a more open-ended permit where they do a post-event action report discussing any issues or things that might need to be modified in the future. So it's a little bit different than what would be, just kind of a normal activity. And so the concern was just the fact that you're taking this event beyond the normal hours that have been kind of palatable to the community. And there's always issues still, people with, especially the parking. And I think it's probably, the after event when people are leaving the event and they're walking through the residential areas to get their cars. And, the longer it goes, that's the longer that people are out and about making noise and having those kind of conflicts. But Gary could talk a little bit more. We did look extensively to see if there was something that could be done or could we help in any way, but the fact is that it's an inside event being brought outdoors for an extended period of time beyond what their permit allows. So it's not the noise ordinance that triggered this, it's because it's an actual special event.
So they can appeal it to the city council from the planning commission, and then if we put this as an agenda item on, say, the July 6th meeting, that appeal could be voted on by us.
So I think Gary could answer that because
Okay,
Gary
thank you,
is
Gary.
the planning guru and I probably will muddy it up.
Good evening, council members. So first, I'd just like to clarify that the Planning Commission has not reviewed this item. I'm not sure what they were speaking of exactly, but there has not been a recent meeting where the Planning Commission reviewed a request to allow the condition of approval on the Mad River Festival use permit to be modified in some way. The condition currently, and I'm looking this up as we're going here. Let me just see if I can find the exact language. So it says all outdoor productions, for example, theatrical performances, music, etc., shall end by 10 p.m. So that's the condition that's been applicable to the Mad River Festival for several use permit cycles. And since 2014, they now have an indefinite use permit. It used to be a 5-year renewal every year. But as Mandy noted, this ending by 10 p.m. was a condition that was added that was considered to be reasonable for outdoor performances, so there weren't substantial noise impacts to the surrounding residents and stuff like that. So I would just say when we saw the description of the event for this year, we saw in there that it stated they wanted the activity to go past 10, I think potentially in the tent mostly. But we didn't understand that that was a request to have the item go to the Planning Commission to look at the conditions of the use permit and whether they could be modified just for this year or going forward. I mean, that was not clear to us. I don't think it specifically stated that. And if it did, then we overlooked it. Otherwise, as far as the noise ordinance, I just want to clarify that it's actually the city manager that has the ability to issue a waiver of the noise standards. And this is the section that's at the end of the new noise ordinance. And it basically says the city manager, in coordination with other city staff, such as the planner, may waive the requirements for the noise standards that apply to events like that. And, there's a process for doing that. It looks like there's notification 10 days prior to making a determination, prior to the city manager making a determination. You have to notice people within 300 feet, which is similar to what's done with a use permit. And then the manager would consider any objections, things like that, and then ultimately issue a waiver determination, which wouldn't take effect until 10 days following the city manager filing their determination. So it's a process. There's 10-day notification in advance. The manager files their determination. Then there's a 10-day appeal period afterwards. So really, you're looking at a 20-day process for the city manager to review and approve a waiver if that's what she would so choose to do. So just want to make that distinction between this 10 p.m. requirement is a condition of approval of the Mad River Festival use permit. And the waiver, yes, that's part of our noise ordinance, but not necessarily something that can be used to supersede that condition of approval of the use permit.
Can I just quickly ask a question, Gary? Thank you.
Sure, sure.
And good to see you again. It's been a while. I guess we could quibble whether the tent is an outdoor performance or not. Essentially, it is an enclosed space, but without getting into, I think we would love to appeal if at all possible. And I didn't understand this had not been before the Planning Commission already. I thought it had been. So and to my knowledge, that this was an appeal of that. So that's our misunderstanding of it. And again, I just want to stress the fact this is not setting a precedence or at all trying to revise or change going forward the permit that we have for the festival. It's very specifically just for this year, and it is very specifically related to the COVID situation and the restrictions that puts on us in terms of making income in a tough year.
So Michael, it seems like the simplest solution would be to change the Red Light Cabaret viewings on those 2 days from like 8 to 10 instead?
Because of other programming, that might not be possible. Again, we would have to look at the schedule for that. There's a bunch of it's pretty tightly scheduled in terms of what the festivals are. And the circus, I think, plays directly before that, and don't trust my memory on anything. But I think that's kind of what the schedule is right now. And normally the cabaret would start at 10:30 and go till midnight. And we've already kind of backed away from that.
Because that's when it was indoors.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because this is taking a lot of time during public meeting, and we
Yeah.
can't make a decision. I'm wondering if the staff who are meeting tomorrow, Wednesday morning, perhaps can look at some creative ways to make this happen.
Yeah, I think that the trade-off is going to be the impacts to the surrounding area to the benefit of the festival. And that's kind of what we have to weigh. And as we know, there's that area is got some very vocal residents that live in that area. And so, looking at, do we want to create that conflict and take that conflict on for a couple of days and potentially, cause more waves when you guys have an existing permit that seems to be working and we can point to it that, hey, this was what the expectations have been? Or do we want to, ultimately it'll be me that deals with the complaints and the nuisance complaints and issues.
But there is a notification process too, so those people are going to be.
Well, you would
notified.
notify them and then they could appeal, but we couldn't make it in time. The festival is right around the corner. So, I mean, I guess that's just the trade-off.
I wish we had known about this ahead of time, much more ahead of time, because now we're looking at a timeline here that it's just not gonna work. I just don't see with a 20-day timeline and this happening on the 16th and 17th, you know, that's, the timeline is a crunch for the time that we have. So I'd like to make it work.
We can keep
Staff?
working with them to see if we
Yeah.
can come up with something reasonable.
Yeah,
Like I said,
Maybe
it'll just
tomorrow
be, you know, what level of, and maybe people will be fine. I don't have a lot of hope.
And we do, just as part of our current permit, we do notification of neighbors in terms of the festival and ask them to come to us if there are any issues. And just to be very specific, I'm happy to talk to Raymond if necessary. We go way back. So just to, and I know what the issues are that you're referring to, and we're happy to do whatever we need to do to help that as well.
Sounds like some of the notifications are already happening, so we would meet that timeline.
Yeah, I mean, Gary, why don't Gary and I
Yeah.
talk tomorrow and see what we can come up with?
yeah.
And can we, how about if it's something that needs additional council comment, then maybe bring it to July 6th, otherwise,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
that
you
sounds
all.
good.
Thank
I
you.
look forward to the festival, Michael. I have several tickets, so.
We love it.
Thanks,
Thank you
Michael.
so
Good to
much
see
for
you.
your support.
Thank you for your time, you all. We thank you so much.
Good night.
Bye.
Is there any other public comment? By
Looks like Lisa Hoover.
Lisa Hoover, would you like to make a couple?
And this-
public-
Yes,
like,
I
15
actually,
people on
can you
that.
hear
We
me?
wanted to make that bigger so
Yeah, can we
see
change the
view?
view?
Yeah, this is Lisa. Hoover.
Yes.
This is mainly about the Del Arte event. I want to be, and I'm very much in supportive of the accommodation, given the situation and what's gone on, and given the role that Del Arte has played in this community. I just really hope that there can be some flexibility in reference to what Michael and the others are trying to do. So that's mainly what I wanted to say, because it is we all know we need to have some flexibility. And again, it's not a precedent setting thing, it's an exception. And this whole year has been an exception. So I just wanted to encourage that. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. We kind of lost you at the end there. Thank you for your comment. Is there any other public comment? Okay, I don't see any hands up. So we're going to move on then to item 4, the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget amendment adoption. The city accountant has prepared a year-end budget amendment for fiscal year 2021. This amendment adjusts revenues and expenditures based upon actual costs and final projections. And our city accountant is actually here.
This is the one that you handed us tonight of,
It's an we tried to kind of refine it with it. It's still a little bit confusing, so Scott can explain it.
Can you highlight it for us, please?
I know at the last meeting you had asked more for a summary, but I think just the way the funds are set up, it's kind of hard to summarize it. I mean, this is almost as much as you can summarize, but I think Scott can at least explain where those numbers come from and what they mean, because they can be a bit confusing on, especially some things.
So if we look at the general fund, you can see the various revenue line items that we're wanting to amend accumulate down to the total revenues and transfers in. So these line items had an original budget of $452,343. Our net amendment is going to reduce those revenues by $34,501 down to $417,842. At the same time, if you flip back to page 3, you've got the same thing going on with the expenditure side. So the total original budget for these expenditure items was 462,171. We're proposing to reduce those expenditures by 193,612 to bring them down to 268,559. So the overall impact on the general fund of the budget amendment is, projecting about $160,000 benefit. So basically, that's kind of the methodology behind each of the funds' budgets. I don't know if you want to go through each fund or if you've already had time to do that, or how you'd like to proceed with that.
It's mainly because of the park, isn't it?
There's a variety of factors.
Funding and parks and, yeah.
But with the general fund, that's definitely a big impact. Is COVID has had a big impact on the recreational and skate programs.
We did pick up additional funding like in law enforcement. We had savings in some staffing and benefits. And Parks doesn't make a lot of money. A lot of the programs just break even. So we have accumulated all of our Blue Lake Power rents. We had some additional COVID dollars. So, I think we did a pretty good job going through COVID, kind of controlling everything and keeping everything going with things being in flux and shut down. And we were able to pull in additional revenues, which was really great. So at least the end result is that the city did really well in the general fund.
Yeah.
So Scott, can you explain where that approximately 160,000 would go at this point? Where would it be stored?
Well, when you look at the entire budget, it's going to help bring that budget, more in line with kind of a savings.
Right, so is there a specific fund it goes to, or is it dispersed?
No, it just stays in the general fund.
Okay.
Yeah. So, it will carry over into future years.
Okay.
And so
It's
you'll
not
see
spent.
when you look at the 21-22 budget, you'll see a projected fund balance for the general
And
fund.
that's where it's like your starting point plus.
Right. So it's projecting a fund balance of June 30th of 1,230,205 in the general fund.
I have to ask these questions. So they had ignorance because it's not my
Oh,
wheelhouse.
it is confusing. It's very
confusing.
fund accounting is confusing.
So,
Have had to do budget amendments before.
Yeah.
This is a large one.
yeah.
Relatively, but it's not unusual. The usual year we have.
So just for example, the general fund, the original budget was pretty much break even, like a $56 net income. So this budget amendment, if everything holds to budget, you're going to end up with a net income or excess of more like 160,000. So it's definitely a good situation to be in with the general fund.
Little dog is very.
Yeah, I thought I could.
It's cute.
What a play. Okay, are there any other questions or concerns from council? Any questions from the audience on this item? Seeing no hands, we'll put it back to the council. We need a motion to adopt the budget amendment.
I'll move to adopt the budget amendment.
Second.
Motion by Chris Curran, seconded by Summer Doherty to adopt the budget amendment for 2020-2021. Is there any further discussion from council? Is there any further discussion from or questions from public? Coming back to council for the vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes. All right, we're on item 5, fiscal year 2021-2022, budget presentation and adoption. We've all had this to look at, so a pretty good idea of what's going on with our city finances. Would you like to highlight anything?
I think if you go to pages 1 through, I believe 7, are going to kind of give you a snapshot of what's going on.
And just so council knows, we're going to be bringing you back a nice clean copy at a future meeting, but this way you at least have the numbers that you can adopt, and then we'll do the graphs and everything. But
Oh, yeah.
this is a busy time. Yes, I know.
Something.
The end of the year is really busy. We're trying to close out the fiscal year, do budgets, do all the reports and audits and stuff.
Okay.
So the way it works is
Yeah.
1 through 7 is a summary of each of the various funds. And then the subsequent pages provide detail to those funds. So if you wanted to really dig into it, you could. So I could just go through the summary and just kind of highlight the bottom line for each fund and what it's doing to the fund balance. So the general fund on page 1, you're looking at an excess of about 25,000. And you can see what that's going to do to the fund balance. It's going to bring it from about 1.2 to 2.4 to 230. The Powers Creek District Fund, it's projecting a loss of about 30,000. And again, that's continued economic development activities. So you can see where the fund balance is going to end up at the end of the year. Fund 38, it's projecting a $7,500 excess, and that's just going to build into the fund balance. Page 2, we have a new fund. It's the Recreation Economic Analysis Fund. So I don't know if you want to elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, that's the EDA fund that's doing the, that'll fund the economic analysis for the RV park campground and support business project. So we broke that out into its own fund because sometimes it gets a little confusing when the grants come in and they just kind of get lumped into that category of state grants or other funds. And it's even hard for me sometimes to like extrapolate now which ones comprise that number. So some of these we've decided to break out into their own funds so they're easy to track and to see and keep those expenses and revenues separate.
So page 2 and 3 are basically the special revenue funds. So with the special revenue funds, typically, you know, the income is going to equal the expenses. And if not, then you're basically spending some excess that is accumulated from prior years. So the next fund is the American Rescue Plan COVID Relief Fund. And Mandy, do you want to kind of highlight on that?
So that is the federal dollars that we'll be receiving. The city's projected to receive, I think, 298,000. We're supposed to receive that into 2 tranches. So the first one, we just applied for our funding. They just kicked it back, asking for some clarification. It's a pretty simple upload process, so we should have that handled tomorrow. We're projected to get, I think it's 148,000 around there for the first allocation. And that money can be used for revenue replacement. It can be used to replace staffing levels. It can be used for small business development, resiliency building, infrastructure. So the budget that we were proposing was, we talked about this, I think a couple of meetings ago, money for an economic development planner position, because part of what is coming in are additional programs. So trying to fund a position that can administer, work with the small businesses, administer this grant, and also leverage the resources to try and build in more capacity and more opportunity. Some money to fix the Little League field. During COVID, we had no activity in the fields, just in terrible condition. And when we lost our staffing levels and we lost our volunteers and everything was shut down, it's in a pretty poor state with gophers, and it's kind of been on the end of its lifespan where it needed to be replaced anyway. So that was something that was proposed, some money for small business assistance. And we've talked about maybe it's beautification grants. It could be helping with maybe a piece of equipment or parklets or outdoor seating. It could be a marketing campaign, signage, branding, anything to kind of help businesses keep their feet under them and moving forward. It's not a lot of money, so we're trying to kind of figure out, how to spread it around and how to do the most good with that. And
Can it be loaned to businesses?
I believe it can be a revolving loan, and so that's something that we could look at setting up, or you can just do it as a grant and not require a payback. So, depending on what the need is, I mean, I could see 50,000 going really far for like a little downtown beautification project. Maybe it's painting some of the businesses or some new signage outside, or beautification planters or benches or seating, things that just kind of provide a little bit more vibrancy for the businesses. We don't have a lot of businesses, so the ones we have, it would be really kind of just working with them to see the best way to help. Could be helping with marketing, branding, outreach, social media outreach. So it's flexible.
You also included the salary schedule. Is that, has that been updated to reflect the minimum wage?
Yeah, so
changes?
we have some, so we've factored that in. Minimum wage goes into effect for us in July, and it's $14 an hour. So we bumped everything over, and our goal is, to get to that $15 level. I mean, it's hard to compete. McDonald's starts at 15. I just saw, I think Taco Bell started at like $17 an hour. So,
Wow.
when we're trying to grab, and we're, we have a lot of college kids and high school kids, so we're kind of competing with some of the lower entry level positions. They don't receive benefits. So, trying to bump up that wage a little bit, and they're all part-time, limited hours. So being flexible, we'd like to, get everyone at least starting at that 15 range.
Did the
Am I
council
missing
have
that?
any questions?
I'm missing that page.
It's in the resolution.
Oh, okay.
The original.
You want the salary schedule? Sorry.
Okay, there it is.
Yeah.
In between, okay.
Any other questions or concerns from the?
And just another quick update, we are doing a rate study right now, because if you see the water and sewer funds, they're kind of trending up and down. We're losing revenue in the turbidity reduction fund, and that's kind of an awkward setup. It's kind of on like this moving 5-year average, and so sometimes you're trending down and then you're supposed to catch up again, and they keep telling us it'll catch up, and it doesn't seem to catch up, and it seems to just be trending downward. So we're working right now with RCA on looking at our fees, looking at a capital improvement plan and tying that back, and we may need to go out for for a fee increase based on what we're seeing. So the last one we had was in 2015. That was kind of the ending point. So we haven't had a fee increase for a while, but we're starting to see the funds not keeping up. So.
Okay, so sorry, I was listening when you talked about the wages, but I wanted to jump back. And so for level 1, those will all be bumped to 15?
It just depends right now on what the programs can handle. Minimum wage is 14 for us. We're under 25 employees, but it's going to go up to 15. Everyone's pretty much at 15 already. So, we did a little bit of fluctuation with our camp program, and we saw where we were being out, we were out competed on some levels for staff, and we had to bump them up because they were like, hey, we could get a better offer over here. So we made some of those concessions. Some of it depends, sometimes we get high school kids and, they don't have any skill sets. And, so starting out, they might be okay at the 14, 23 or 33 or something, because they're only working, maybe, I don't know, 16 hours, a pay period or something. So it's just very entry level. But, trying to look at where we're at, the city has good benefits. So for our full-time staff, we have some people who we're not paying necessarily a really high wage, but our benefit package is really good. And so that's, for some people, that's more of a plus than it is the wage being increased. So it balances out.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Are there any questions about the budget from our audience? See any? Okay, so what we have is a resolution, number 1186, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Blue Lake adopting a budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022, and finding the budget to be within the appropriations limit required by Article 8B of the California Constitution. I'm very excited about this because we made it under the under the time, July 1st,
Yeah.
2 days ahead. So good job, Mandy and Scott. Thank you, and staff.
Love working those
That
weekends.
makes the mayor happy, little things. Because I've been on many councils where it hasn't come in time, okay? And that's okay, you know, the city keeps functioning, but it has a nice feeling to have it all neatly ready and done.
You'll have nice graphs and everything soon.
Yeah, we look forward to those.
This is as
We
much
do.
as we could. I know,
We
I
like
would like
those.
the graphs.
I think Mandy and I have kind of developed a pretty good process now. This is what our third year of
Yeah.
putting the budget together.
Okay.
It's quite a project. And I think moving forward, you know, we'd like to maybe have some budget study sessions with you so that we can dig into the details, because I know it's really difficult at a meeting to jump into everything. But yeah, I see things moving forward in a positive direction. So
Yeah, there's been a lot of cleanup along the way, a lot of changes and, you know, but it's been good and we're starting to get a feel for it. Scott's got lots of great Excel spreadsheets out there now.
And one thing I wanted to mention is Mandy, I think, is planning to contract out an update to the financial policies and procedures manual. So I think that will really be a helpful tool in kind of defining the finances of the city. I think that the current policy is severely outdated, so.
All right. Okay, we need a motion to adopt resolution number 1186.
Second.
Motion made by Summer Doherty, seconded by Chris Curran to pass resolution number 1186, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Blue Lake adopting a budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022, and finding the budget to be within the appropriations limit required by Article 8B of the California Constitution. Is there any further discussion from council? Any questions or concerns from the public? No budget nerds out there. Okay, back to council for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks to Scott. He's spent a lot of late days and like I said, the weekend was there's a lot of time at City Hall this last weekend. So.
Can we change the view? I just worried that the window's covering. I don't know.
It's hard
Okay.
because not everybody uses the raise your hand feature. They
Yeah.
just raise their hand in the window instead of,
Well,
so it's hard to see when people have comments.
but if they haven't shown.
What
themselves-
about up in the upper left, that view?
This one?
Yeah, is there a better one?
But the people
Speaker
themselves are
gallery.
blocking them. I've got themselves
I think it
out.
pops up.
Okay.
If someone's hand, we found this out last time.
Yeah.
It flipped them, so someone's hand
Okay.
went up and they popped up to the front of the screen. And then if someone needs to be admitted, it usually makes a noise.
All right,
And
we
I have,
are
and it
now
pops up down
on
here too.
technical discussion and then on to item 6, Danco Builders Development Proposal Presentation, Discussion and Direction. And who would like to start this discussion with us?
I think Chris.
Chris, can you unmute yourself?
Oh, yeah, you want me to start? I can. I didn't know if you're starting with staff. I can jump right in with a presentation if that's what's wanted. You ready for that?
Sure,
Yeah.
jump in.
Okay, I'll share my screen. Did a little PowerPoint here. Let me see. Let's see if you can. Oh, shoot. I don't know if you guys can.
There, it's coming.
It's coming.
You see
Patient.
that?
Yes.
Okay. You see the picture of the building and it says Danco Group on the front?
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. Oh, good evening, members of the City Council. Thank you for allowing me to introduce myself, introduce Danco, and have a discussion of the possibility of working together on a mixed-use project located on your property off Taylor Way. We're really excited about this opportunity to work together on this project. Some of you likely know us, but I'm going to talk briefly about Danco, what we're up to, showcase a few of our projects, and then I'm going to turn it over to Cash Buja, the project architect, to give more details of the concepts and the preliminary sketches that we've been working on. My name is Chris Start. I'm the president of Danco Communities. I've been in the construction development business for about 26 years. I've been about 18 years experience developing, building and managing affordable housing projects all over the state and even some out of the state. Danco Group is a group of companies that makes offers primarily around housing. We've been in business since 1986. We have over 300 employees, and we have three main companies amongst our group. Danco Communities is our development company. We primarily do workforce housing, senior housing, and some special needs housing. We have Danco Builders, which is our general contractor, which we also self-perform work like framing, concrete cabinets, earthwork, plumbing, roofing. And then we have our management company, which is Danco Property Management. We're doing mostly just managing our own projects, but we've recently started to actually do third-party management. I think I was on the wrong slide. We refer to ourselves as vertically integrated, which is a fancy way of saying that we do all those disciplines that I just described in-house, which would be development, construction, and property management. We have extensive experience in multifamily and affordable housing, working statewide. Got a few notable projects here to mention. We've got our Bayview Heights project in Eureka, which we just finished up. It's for 50 units for veterans. Got Plaza Point apartments in Arcata, which cross from the co-op, which I understand there's a tour being, potentially tour being organized. We have the Felix Rest Townhomes in Samoa, a large family project we completed, a number of projects in Humboldt County. Won't mention them all, but and then a few out of the area. We just finished a project in Gilroy for seniors called Monterey Gateway. Currently have 6 projects under construction, 2 in Santa Rosa, 2 in San Jose that are actually getting ready to start, and 1 in Arcata that you probably see down by the plaza if you're in Arcata. And then a project in Fort Bragg called the Plateau, which is a mix of family, senior, and supportive housing all on one campus. This is our management team. We've got Dan Johnson. He's the overall founder and CEO of the Danco Group. Started the business in 1986, primarily as a contractor. Myself, I'm the president of our development company. Then we have Mackenzie Dibble, who's a development project manager. Haley Del Grande, who's also a development project manager. She'll be working on this project and has been working on this project primarily. And then we have Blair Brown, who is our vice president of property management. I was going to just showcase a few of the projects that we've done, just to give you an idea of what we're capable of, really, and just to point out some of the projects and the quality and some of the features. This first project is called Plaza Point, and again, I understand we're organizing a tour. We'd be happy to take any of the council members through, or anybody from the community would like to see project. This is a mixed use senior affordable project downtown Arcata across from the co-op, 3 stories. This project was designed by Cash as well. It's been constructed about 10 years ago, roughly is when we placed it in service. It's 29 senior housing units with a mix of 1s and 2s. All the rooms have balconies, or most of the rooms have balconies overlooking the plaza and surrounding area of Arcata. It's got a large community space, a lounge, a large meeting room, community garden space. It has a unique feature. We've incorporated a commercial community commercial kitchen where we have an outfit that comes in there and puts on cooking classes and offers those to the seniors that live in the facility, as well as other community members. So it's been a pretty neat community benefit. And then we have free exercise classes that are offered. The project was completed as a LEED Platinum design, which is a high level of achievement for energy efficiency, and in LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. The project generates 100% of electricity on site, and there's roughly 100+ person waiting list to move into this project. It's very popular, very nice, high quality project, centrally located downtown Arcata off the plaza. Next project that I wanted to showcase was we call this Sorrel Place. It's also known by some as Isaacson's because it used to house years ago the Isaacson's car dealership. This is a 44 unit family housing project that's under construction. It's about a block away from the Plaza Point project. We could also arrange a tour here if when the council comes to see Plaza Point, if some of the members want to walk through here, we just ask that you wear your hard hat and vests, and we'd be happy to walk you through the building in the framing stage, even take you up on the roof. This project was designed by DG Architecture, another firm that we work with out of the area. This is a mix of 1s, 2s, and 3-bedroom apartments. It's 4 stories. It's the tallest building in Arcata, right there next to the Jacoby Storehouse. It has a large community space, including a kitchen, gaming room for teens, and a lounge for teens. It's got a unique outdoor tot lot that we're putting together with climbing walls and big boulders and a sort of a ropes theme. Also has community garden, free exercise classes. This project is unique features. It's also a net zero, 100% electricity on site. It's an alternative transportation project. So we did this project in partnership with the city of Arcata, and we brought in a fund called the Affordable Housing Sustainables Community Fund. We were able to use the housing project to leverage several $1 million to go towards improvements to the city of Arcata tied to this project, but also tied to transportation improvements and reduction of greenhouse gases. Those improvements are sidewalk improvements, trails extensions. They're actually buying an electric bus with some of those funds, bus passes for the residents, a bike share program, electrical vehicle charging stations, to name a few. So it's a very exciting project. It's going to open right around the end of this year, beginning of next year. It'll be complete and opening. And then lastly, I wanted to just showcase a project that we finished out in the Samoa Peninsula. We call the Phyllis Rex Townhomes. Phyllis was a resident of Samoa that passed away just over a year ago, who lived in the town her entire life. So we named the project after her. This is an 80 unit large family workforce housing project. It's got a mix of 1s, 2s, 3-bedroom apartments. It's located on the Samoa Peninsula. Has stunning views of the Humboldt Bay and Pacific Ocean. The unique features in this project is every unit has a garage. Not sure that's ever been done before for affordable apartments, but this project does. So it's really a great amenity for the residents. Also has a large community room, exercise space, laundry, outdoor barbecue, basketball courts. Also, a unique feature is open door clinic, actually operates inside our community room. We set them up a space free of charge, and they're setting up office hours in there as a clinic inside the space, just be able to come closer to the residents. We also offer bus passes and free internet. Project also is net zero. Pretty much all of our projects are net zero, all electricity generated on site. And this project is highly popular, filled up immediately. Mostly I'm going to turn this over to Cash, but I just wanted to say a few words before I do that. So Cash is going to talk a little bit about the project that we've been contemplating on your site. We've had an idea of doing a mixed-use project in Blue Lake for quite some time now. We started trying to work on the Calgon property about a year and a half ago, but we weren't able to come to terms with that seller. And then started discussing this possibility of developing mixed use on your property. Cash has been working on some conceptual drawings. We're very early in this process. I think this is the first time that there's been any sort of concept or anything introduced in a public forum. We're clear this project would still need to go through, a lot of different steps: land use approvals, design review, negotiations, et cetera. But Cash has done some drawings of a mixed commercial and residential units with amazing views, and we've had a number of high-level conversations with potential commercial tenants that have expressed interest, and we're really excited about this. We think we can help make an amazing project and bring to the city of Blue Lake if you'll have us. And so we'll just turn it over to Cash at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Did anyone have questions of Chris at this time? Okay. All right, go ahead, Cash.
Good evening. Good to be here. I was contacted by Danco sometime in April to help out with the project. Somebody else had started on it, and we started with a discussion of 50 units, and with that, basically 2 parking spaces per unit. And I started laying out the impacts on the site and reported back to Chris and Haley on the potentials, and had come to the conclusion that what might work was maybe a lower number of units, 32, and then it's had a bunch of subsequent meetings. And right now the proposal that you see in front of you are 40 residential units with a total of 80 parking spaces. All the ground level is commercial retail spaces, and except for a common area and an elevator lobby on the ground level. And the total ground level, I think this one is, I can't remember right now. I can't see this, or maybe we can go to the next page, Chris, if you don't mind. Yes. So you can see the square footage is about 20,000 square feet of retail and commercial on this, and then there's the residential common space and the lobby. One of the things I was trying to do with this concept was to see if we can break this mass of this structure so that it would feel like at least 2 different buildings, starting a sense of a campus over there rather than having just a large structure out of place sitting there. So you can see here that taking advantage of Taylor Way's width, and also there's a big utility and infrastructure access there on the north side of Taylor. So putting a bunch of the parking spaces there to hopefully reduce the impact of the paving on the site. But still, since it's a commercial establishment, we have those 2 rows of perpendicular parking stalls on either side of it. One of them by the one on the west side is next to the lift station, and they all have handicap access. And there's the one thing that happens with funded project like this is that all the residential units for the affordable residential units need to be fully handicap accessible. So Therefore, you cannot necessarily separate the structures very easily. They have to be able to, with the elevator, they have to be able to get to all the different units. And Chris, you can go to the next slide, please. So in here, what we did is we have a combination of a structure that has a central corridor that's feeding 2-bedroom and 1-bedroom units with a 3-bedroom on the very end, leading to a stairway that goes down, and that would be the one on the west. And then the mid-level common area accesses an open rooftop corridor that feeds the units on the east side, leading to an open stairway on the north. Again, trying to break up the mass of the structure so it doesn't look like too big a structure back there. And if you go to the next slide, Chris, please. On the third level, we stacked the corridor structure right on top, but off the common, there's a potential discussions have happened with a winery here, so they can potentially have a roof deck there with a wine tasting. And then in that, above the rooftop access area, there's an open hallway or balcony that feeds all those other structures that you have. And then it leads to a roof deck on that north end that accesses the open stairways for egress of everybody. So basically, this is work in progress. As Chris mentioned, it's a conceptual floor plan that I don't think Mandy even saw this. I tried to email it to her. I don't know if she received it or not, but that's how fresh this design is. But it does address some of the issues or the concepts or the numbers that we've talked about, so that maybe the council can see what the unit approval impacts or a structure like this can potentially look like on the site as the negotiations go on. Thanks, Chris. And this is the backside from the creek looking at it. Again, trying to break up the mass with the different treatments of the roof lines and the finishes in this conceptual rendering of the potential look of the building. So that this can give you some idea of what 40 units with 80 parking spaces can result in as we keep working on the project. If you decide to move forward with this, I think the idea of some community workshops and designs and dialogues together would be very good. You probably know about the funding. We have plenty of time for that design to go on after these initial decisions, if they're approved, for us as a community to revisit the design process and have input with everybody on, the various ways that we can approach this design. But obviously, given the constraints of the ADA and access and the bottom line of the number of units and retail square footages. The other thing that really has impact, obviously, is the height restrictions, the 35-foot height limit, the 45-foot height limit. And with the Keith Barnard's rearranging of the creek and enhancement and restoration of it, there was also some opportunities to maybe work with that setback line. And here we're staying under the 45 feet height and under the 35 feet height in the applicable areas, but at the same time keeping the downstairs, the ground level at minimum 13.5 feet high ceiling, finished ceiling, so that the retail spaces can be flexible and have different users in them that accommodate commercial retail establishments. And then the second floor has a 9-foot ceiling, and then the upper level has vaulted ceilings. So I'll stop talking and see if you all have any questions.
A quick question for you, Cash. Is it too early to understand? Are you proposing to have the business or retail frontage facing the north or the south?
They're facing they're facing both direction, Summer. The idea is for community pedestrian access. If you like, you can go back to the site plan, but community pedestrian access being from the north, sort of a campus feel of less car activities on that side, only for service and maybe truck access. But then another sort of a retail frontage on Taylor Way. So that the businesses can be either split or have two faces.
And has the commercial space, so you're showing this like second and third levels here, but the commercial space is not, I mean, that's still an in progress work because.
This is basically some idea of what the square footage and the breakup of the commercial space can be, you know, depending on the potential tenants, whether they want 10,000 square feet or just 1,500 square feet. They're set up to potentially, obviously, you know, you have to support the load of the floors above. So there'll be some columns and beams and whatnot that'll impact it. But I've shown here some ghost lines of maybe what the different sizes of the businesses can be. And then their accesses to parking and folks walking by.
And then you said there were 80 parking spots too, which were 2 per housing unit, which was a total of 40. How many additional parking spaces and where for retail and commercial would be allotted?
None. In the discussions that we've had with Gary, we thought that maybe the overlap of the business and the residences can take care of the idea of the 2 parking space ratio per residential unit, because you know, the majority of 50% of the 50% of the residential units are 2-bedroom, 25% are 1-bedroom, and 25% of 3-bedroom. So basically, we're looking at everything as almost like a 2-bedroom, 1 parking space per bedroom. But the discussions that we had in one of the joint meetings with the planning staff was that meets the code language, that would be sufficient to not worry about having parking spaces added for the retail or commercial.
Can we had talked about doing some different adjustments to parking on Taylor and adding, because it's such a wide area, we could do that anyway.
Yeah, and there's a lot of opportunity to develop other parking spaces. And there's also opportunity to make connected spaces. When we're looking at, you know, I mean, you could park at the tennis courts and walk across the footbridge and you're right in the district, you know, so trying to encourage people not to park. We didn't want it to be the sea of parking and pavement, because that's really not what that area really is about. It's about recreation uses, walking, biking, riding horses, and less about, you know, vehicular access. So we thought it would be better to make put more emphasis on some of our additional parking spaces around the community and make those connections via the trail, signage, and encourage people to, you know, park over here, but get on your bike and ride into the district. It's less impact, it's more compatible with what our current are versus trying to attract a bunch of vehicular traffic.
Got it. Okay.
And there's opportunities within these funding sources to make additional improvements if you can show that connectivity. So it's possible that we can do parklets and little areas and have that infrastructure improved as part of this funding source, because it's part of our, you know, connected space and our pedestrian access and our trail networks.
There's plenty of parking along Taylor Way. That's a long stretch there. You know, there's really a lot of parking there.
There's been a lot of talk about reconfiguring Taylor Way and putting in some, you know, traffic calming, putting in some of that center median planting, putting in the different parking bump outs, just to kind of slow all of that down. And then part of the parking that he's showing on the site plan would also double duty for the bike park. So connecting those 2 spaces together. And so you have these 2 facilities that are really building capacity off of each other's development, I think is really exciting too.
Thanks.
Okay. Other questions or comments from council? Thank you for the presentation. I appreciated seeing the drawing. Thank you, Cash.
Cash, can you talk really quickly? I think one of the questions we had in the past was just that this project was going to develop all of the space in the Powers Creek district. Can you talk a little bit about what the size of this project is, and also maybe highlight how much space is left over for development? Because that was something too that people were concerned about, that we were completely over intensifying the development and losing a lot of green space, but there's still a lot of property left, and you guys are only looking at a very small portion, well, not a small portion, but less than half of what's existing.
Sure. Thank you. The earlier question actually was really right on because of Taylor Way. I think come 2026, we have to be prepared for that, and for that it'd be a master planning of that whole area. And Taylor Way can be very different from what it is, and I think that what we try to do with the design here is to set it up so that it can accommodate a future Taylor Way that is addressing, you know, all the different sites to the south or whatnot. The particular layout that you saw in front of you and the number of units and the residential, I can comfortably tell you that it can double on the east side of that same property and parcel with the same support for number of parking spaces. So even with the bicycle park, you can, what is being proposed here is probably, quite honestly, if somebody actually uses the language of the code, they can do 3 times the size of the building that I've shown you on the property. But right now it's set up for it to just double. Does that answer your question, Mandy?
Yeah, what's the parcel size that you guys are considering for this development?
I don't
calc it yet. I don't think we've calculated it yet. I was just looking at it. It looks to be close to about half of the overall parcel to me, but I don't think we've calculated it at this point.
I know at one point we were looking at just over 2 acres. I don't know if that's close to what you're still thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, it looks close to that to me. I mean, based on the overall site plan, I'm just, you know, eyeballing it. It'll have a kind of an odd property line on the east side, but I think that's probably pretty close.
So those parcels collectively are what, like 5 acres? Or
A little over 5.
a little over
Yeah,
5.
so there's 3 down there.
Right, and so then they're only proposing to build on about 2 of them.
2. Yeah.
So less than half.
Yeah, especially if you don't count the trail and all that, then definitely it's probably 2 acres. But if you took the property line straight over through the trail, then it might be closer to 2.5. But we can have it calc that up at some point in the near future.
Chris, can you provide a little bit of information on kind of the feedback you've been getting from other businesses that had been a concern? Also that, you know, the city wasn't really viable for small businesses, or we wouldn't really attract anyone out here. Can you maybe give a little bit of a overview of kind of what you're hearing in the business community on what Blue Lake's viability is?
Yeah, so we've talked to 3 different businesses that that probably everybody knows their names, and they were all like super excited about it. Our initial conversations with them were, you know, didn't even barely say hello, and they're like, "We're in. We'd love to be part of this project." I think, you know, like the winery we've been talking to, we've also been talking to a small food business. I'm not disclosing names just because I didn't ask them in advance, just to be respectful of that. But the initial feedback has been great. And again, we've only spoken to 3 different businesses, and all of them were, yes, let us know what we need to do. We want to be part of this. This is a great project in a great area, and take us to the next level. We really want to get a little further along with our concept and just get you know, some community feedback, the council nod if nothing else, before we really start distributing this and talking seriously with people, so that we know, what kind of space we have available to offer. And I'm speculating that, there's a lot of square footage of commercial space, and likely we wouldn't have everything committed prior to starting construction. Probably have a portion of committed, and then a remainder that would just be done as spec. That we would set it up in a way which Cassius did a similar thing on Plaza Point in Arcata there, where we didn't actually have any of those businesses committed when we started that project. But we set it up to where they could, come within the space. We knew where the bathrooms were going to lay out. We set up the storefront in advance. So my guess is that as we start moving through this process, we will get some people that actually want to sign a long-term lease up front, and then we can design the space for their use in the beginning, which is ideal. But that's a lot of space, and there's a strong possibility that a portion of would be built as spec. So did that answer it, Andy? Okay.
Chris, in your projects, do you have the managers living in one of the residences? I don't know how it works with your properties in Arcata, but is that a model that you look at, to have a manager on site in one of the residences?
It is, absolutely. So our model is we generally make the best unit, the manager's unit. It's usually a 3-bedroom unit, and we make it a little special so that we can attract good quality managers that want to actually live in the facility. But yes, all of our projects have a manager's unit that's actually not, it's not on the affordable rent roll. It's free of charge. So they're able to, well, it's free. It's part of their total compensation package for managing the facility. Oftentimes too, if we're lucky enough, we'll also be able to find a maintenance person that lives on site as well. Doesn't always happen, because finding that handyman or handy person that is able to do, all the different trades, electrical, plumbing, painting, that kind of thing can be difficult. But some of the properties we actually have been successful there, and so we have on-site manager and maintenance on site.
Thank you. That was one thing that came to my mind. I know some apartment buildings have that. Any other questions or comments from council?
I was curious if maybe Gary can lay out what the next steps are, just so we have an idea as far as like designing, planning commission, council, and just how it should progress.
I think, Chris, you could probably speak to that first, though. I think the next step is probably getting something under contract, some type of agreement, because I think at this point there's a lot of money being expended without knowing if it's what the council wants to do. Yeah. So that's kind of the missing piece at this point. If, coming up with some type of development agreement that everyone feels comfortable with, and usually those also have an out if things go south. But before it goes much further, much more money is, even on our side, there's a lot of costs being expended on our side, going through this process without anything in writing to recoup that at some point, or to guarantee that we'll have something at the end.
Well, item 7, our next item is, we'll talk about the legal services. I mean, that's one of the things that's critical, because our attorney has indicated that it's a little beyond his expertise. So we need to look at that, and that'll propel things forward too, probably. I'd like to open it up to the public if this is an appropriate time for that, to see if there's any questions or comments that the public has. I know there's quite a few participants that are joining us via Zoom. If you can either raise your hand or unmute yourself in some way to let us know that you need to or want to use the.
Could I comment on Mandy's last comment before you do that? Would that be appropriate?
Yeah, following through with like kind of laying out the next steps would be ideal.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Sorry. So yeah, so the not uncommon for us. We've done multiple projects on city-owned property throughout Humboldt County and throughout different areas of the state. Fortuna, Arcata, Eureka. Currently working on a project in Eureka right now. So some of those city managers or city folks you can speak to about it as well. But as Mandy mentioned, yeah, we're putting forth a lot of time, energy, money, as well as the city. And we would like to enter into an agreement to continue on. There are, and that can be in the form of an exclusive negotiation agreement, pretty simple. We've done them multiple times, as I mentioned. But for financing, we've got to have some sort of development agreement that there's a typical model. They're called disposition development agreements. We've actually proposed a few drafts to you all, to the staff. And that's going to be required before we start actually going after financing. So that we are in grant season. There's a lot of resources coming through the state of California right now, more than I've ever seen in my 20 years doing this. And so to get into a position to be able to secure financing, I think it would be prudent for all of us in this development is to move advance that forward. So next steps, I think, from my perspective is to, go to the next level of agreement. It is typical that the developer would cover all the costs of the project, including city legal fees, through reimbursement or planning fees. I mean, that's not uncommon. I would expect that you would say, city's racking up X number of dollars in fees, you need to cover those costs and have some sort of reimbursement agreement or retainer to cover city staff's time. So we're totally expecting that once we enter into an agreement that's how we would proceed ahead.
Did that answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you open the participants window so we can see when people raise their hands? The actual participant. Oh, no, that works too. Okay.
Yeah, that works.
I was always thinking that. Otherwise,
Okay, so
I'm gonna do a 3-minute or.
yeah, I'd like to have a timer. So Summer has her phone. We're going to ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes and try to get as many comments as we can, as many different ideas as we can. So who would like to jump in first? Indicate by raising your hand.
There's 2 up there already.
Okay.
So Kent, if you want to unmute yourself and.
Okay, I'm ready.
3 minutes is starting.
Okay, first of all, I just want to say that we need affordable housing. We need affordable housing in Blue Lake. I'm not against affordable housing, but I think this will be one of the most significant changes to the housing market or the housing situation in Blue Lake probably since the Rousseau subdivision. So it's very important that the council be very careful with it. I think that at this point, we're in danger of being distracted by the beautiful pictures. Danco does lovely projects. We're all excited about those projects. Cash does a great job showing us pictures, but that's not backing up and paying attention to the broader issues that are represented by making a segregated housing project in an industrial park on a gravel truck route across from the rotting power plant and the porta potty place. We need to keep that higher view. It's important for the council not to just imagine what all the good things that could come out of this are, but also, like an environmental impact report, consider the possible negative consequences. And I don't hear any discussion about that. You need to think about what could possibly go wrong with something like this and have mitigations in place. We're talking traffic, we're talking, I don't know, all kinds of things. So I think we need to be realistic and be looking at both sides of this thing. I am concerned about losing true craft light industrial capabilities in the industrial park and the revenue that that can represent to Blue Lake. So I have a very radical suggestion. First of all, I think that this housing project does in fact turn the ozone a bit on its head. From the ozone, this zone is primarily intended for commercial and manufacturing uses with residential dwellings as a secondary use to promote a live-work type environment. This project doesn't do that. It's primarily residential and it's not primarily commercial. My radical suggestion is eliminate some of the commercial out of the bottom of these buildings and have Danco build for the city of Blue Lake a completely separate, fully commercial, fully light industrial building to be owned by the city of Blue Lake so that we can generate some revenue for the city of Blue Lake, which was the original intention back when I started, marketing this thing in 1980 to, bring revenue for the city because we need the affordable housing and we need the revenue.
3 seconds.
Thank you. It's enough.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, Lisa, did you want to make a comment? Lisa Hoover?
Yes, hello, thank you.
Yeah.
There was some part of what Kit was saying that I concur with about some of the impacts and the reality checks on some of these things. And I definitely have talked to some people, I'm would like to be concerned given the creek and the Mad River environment, the impervious surfaces that are going to come from citizens. So the environmental things come up in my mind. One question though, and I don't know who would answer this, that what is the basis for 40 residential units in this development? What is the bottom line for that? And then if someone could, the word affordable gets thrown out, but I'm not sure exactly what that means. Is it the same as low income? So I've got 2 questions out there, one of which is the basis for this 40 residentials versus 10 residential, or like what Kit was saying, maybe, you have these small industries and then you have some people live upstairs, but this is a pretty elaborate number. So basis for 40 residential, and also the idea, what is affordable? What does that mean? Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I think we can answer your questions. At least the low income question, I believe I answered to you in an email that from what I've heard, for this project, the threshold is 47,000 per year, which I've pointed out is actually a starting pay above a starting teacher in the state of California, which I think is ironic. So maybe the idea of low income, has a misconcept about what low income actually is. Your other question about the basis of 40 residential units, we've talked about a lot of different numbers that have come and gone. And this seemed like a number that would make the project viable to both the city and the developer. And understanding that we're looking forward into 2026 when we're going to be losing revenue, when Blue Lake Power leaves us, the lease will be up then. So looking at some ways to get revenue into the town. And this seems like a state mandate. Yeah, and then there is the state mandate that has said for the city of Blue Lake that we should come up with 44? 44 houses? Is it up to 44?
Something like that with
Yeah.
all of our carryovers.
Yeah. So there again, we have looked as a city at allowing as many mother-in-law units, people building on their backyards, but not everybody wants to be a landlord with a unit on their backyard. They like their gardens or whatever. So there's a limited amount of opportunities in other areas of the town to develop housing.
Okay, so it looks like Lynn, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, I agree with Kit's comments about getting a full look at the pros and cons of every project, but this project particularly. And I'm really hoping I'm going to hear from my city council a lot of questions, hard questions about the parts that might be not so easy for the city. And one of my concerns is services for the residents. And I see that Chris Dart was talking about the Samoa project having a clinic as part of it, because Samoa, I think, like Blue Lake, is also isolated with not very good transportation if people don't have their own cars from services. Other projects that I see that Danco has done have been in urban areas where buses and services are easily located. So I'm wondering if there's been any consideration, and that maybe there will be some consideration for the fact that, we don't have grocery stores for people who don't have cars, easily accessible, clinic services certainly, and other basic needs for the community. So I'm hoping to hear some more about those issues. But also, I agree, I would like to see a city-owned light industry facility as well. Something that will really increase the income producing aspect of the ozone that we thought we were talking about at the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Are there any other questions or comments from our public? I'm looking at the participation. I see a lot of people are there, but no one has indicated they would like to make a comment.
Chris,
oh, Chris, did you want to make a comment?
Well, I wanted to give a little color on the income, the low income question.
Okay.
So we had been contemplating what we call a mixed income project that would have some market units, and then it would be set to different AMIs, 80s, 60s, 50s, 40s range. So on the high income for a 3-person household, the 80% units, 50,000 a year would be the income and below. And then that could range all the way down to 20,000 for the lowest income. So I just wanted to bring that into context. And then I'm sure Gary is going to comment on this, but we would have to go through all the Planning Commission and CEQA to address environmental concerns as part of this project. It's going to be required to do that. I think we have to procure a conditional use permit for the project, which would analyze all the potential environmental impacts from our project, if I'm correct in that, Gary. So I just wanted to make those few comments. Thank you.
Gary, did you want to make some comments concerning the process?
Yeah, sure. So as other folks have touched on, a conditional use permit would be required for this project. And of course, as part of that, they submit project description plans, architectural renderings, but more importantly, to speak to the potential negative consequences of the project, there's a review under the California Environmental Quality Act. And that typically requires a preparation of technical studies. It could be a biological report, a cultural historic report, traffic study, things of that nature. And if it is determined through that investigation that there would be potentially significant impacts of the project, they'd be required to be mitigated through the CEQA process. Not to mention the ability for the Planning Commission to attach conditions of approval to the project as well. And, Mandy and Chris can potentially speak to this more, or Russ, but it's my understanding projects like this, and probably this one, would require a development agreement as well, where the city can ask for things such as development impact fees to address some of the potential impacts of the project, as well as other amenities that would be a benefit of the project. So through the entitlement process that this will have to go through, the potential negative issues that could result from this project will have to be adequately analyzed. The only other thing I'd like to say is, and this is something that was touched on by my boss, Bob Brown, I think at the May 11th meeting, is that light industrial uses don't typically generate tax revenue. The light industrial uses in the business park right now, or the Powers Creek district, don't really generate much tax revenue for the city. Cities typically go after sales tax revenue. That's the big generator.
Thank you, good point. Okay, any other questions or comments from the public?
I think Rebecca's.
Rebecca,
This is just, it's. Yeah. Repetitive.
well,
Or
is,
what do you-
well, we've already heard from Kit. Is this Rebecca that would like to make a comment?
No, no, sorry, I didn't put my hand down. Sorry.
No problem, no problem. Okay, so seeing no other,
Lisa, put her hand up again.
Lisa, did you want to make a further comment?
Just briefly, thanks everyone for your input. It's been helpful. And I just want to know what the follow-up like so we can, I guess, learn a little bit more, the community can learn a little bit more about this, because I know, Danco, you were sorry, Danco, excuse me, Chris, you were talking about the development agreement and getting that underway, but I don't know if this relates to making sure that the community is involved. I don't know if there's another session at all. So that's what I was asking about. More opportunities to learn a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. There'll be lots of opportunity to have a lot more input at all the different levels. These are all completely open meetings, and that is the way government runs.
So it's not only at the council level, you'll be able to participate and provide feedback during the planning commission hearing of the project, as well as they go through the conditional use permit and the CEQA analysis. So there's multiple layers that you can provide feedback and participate in.
Great. Okay, so let's come back then to council. What is the direction or pleasure of the council at this time? It looks like this is discussion and direction. Go ahead.
I'd like to have some community visioning workshops so that we can get together and actually look at large scale drawings and do some mapping and some brainstorming together. I think that would really help both, just with the design, getting something that we're all happy with. And I just think it could be of help to Cash and to Danco to get that kind of feedback from the community. So I'd like to propose that we schedule probably at least a couple of those in whatever time frame makes sense for the project. And then in talking about some of the benefits that Danco, that you mentioned, Chris, about that are just built into kind of the way you do your projects, as far as them being net zero energy consumption. And some of them had commercial kitchen space, free exercise classes, those sorts of things, bike share, EV charging stations, all of those sorts of amenities. Are those things that typically get worked out during the negotiation process, or are some of those things just sort of part of Danco's standard way of doing business, or part of the funding requirements, or how do those sorts of things get incorporated into the project?
Oh, probably all of the above. There are some of them are our standards, some of them are funding requirements, and some of them would be negotiations. The funding generally requires that you do some sort of wraparound services. We try not to bake those in up front. We really want to, understand the needs. Understand maybe some community organizations will surface and say, hey, I'd like to, do that there. I would like to put on this class. And so I think as the conversations progress and the project evolves, we'll start to, get those community services more defined. But also, oftentimes we'll put a placeholder in for the financing because a lot of it will happen during the construction of the project as people start to see the space come to life, that different service providers come forward and say, yeah, I could do that. I could provide this service here in this space. And so we'll definitely keep that going. And if there's any input around that, we plan on having some services and paying for them and offering them to the residents free of charge. The typical ones that we see are cooking classes, exercise classes. In our family housing projects, we've done one, we have in Fortuna, we have an after school program for kids that there's a provider comes in and it's basically there for kids after school, and does teaching and homework studies and things to that nature. There's also, for some of the senior housing projects, we've done some social service offerings where they'll help residents, maybe pay some bills, or ride share where they'll take them grocery shopping. The sky's the limit. I mean, obviously it's got to be within a reasonable cost for the project to handle the cost, but we're generally budgeting on the low end, $20,000 annually for services, on the high end, $60,000, $70,000 for services. So there's some money there to put some real nice services in place for the residents.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
Oh, Cash, did you want to add something to the discussion?
Yes, it was, it had, Elaine kind of covered it. It had to do with Lisa's comment and Summer's reply. I'm certainly planning and have budgeted for more than just meetings with the Planning Commission, counting on some workshops with the community, doing some visioning together. One of the challenges sometimes is that we, as architects or designers, we sit in our office and do designs based on ordinance planning. But here we have a potential of actually looking at the entire site together, putting the ordinances aside, and as a community deciding, what is really an appropriate mass and scale and use and shading and whatnot on this site, as we deal with this potential, opportunity to develop that area, keeping the comments that Kit had in mind too. I think that can happen in here, and it wouldn't even necessarily hurt looking at, okay, there's 2 acres, but what about the other 3 acres in that master planning visioning process? Because piecemealing stuff, it doesn't matter if it looks like the Taj Mahal, it could still be out of place if it's not in context of the entire site. And ordinance planning is not the solution to that.
Thank you, Cash. Any questions or comments from council? What is the pleasure of the council?
Well, what's the first, when could you be prepared for a first workshop? Because, I mean, large public meetings take some planning. It's not like we can just show up and like, here we go. There needs to be some synchronized planning around this to be effective.
And we also have the issue with COVID and how many people we can have in buildings. I mean, we used to hold public meetings at the Grange all the time.
We can do it outside or down on the site.
I mean, it could be done outside, that's a complete thought. I mean, that's a thought in summer. I mean, yeah, nice weather. It's nice out. So that is one idea. Yeah, we could be actually at the site too. That's something to consider.
Chris and Cash, do you guys have suggestions on how you would like to participate in a kind of a community visioning workshop?
I think we have plenty of time. The main thing is you have a vision right now of a 40-unit complex with 80 parking spaces and the potential retail space down below. Like Chris said, it would be great to have that commitment, because the deadlines for his for the application is, I believe, July 12th. So that's the first step. And once we have that, there's another potential application, I believe, in August. But our plans really don't have to get into a design development phase till December. So we have plenty of time. The main thing is to get the commitments from the community, the city council and city manager and the city attorney right now, with the idea that we're going to work on this thing together, and we have time to do that together. It doesn't necessarily have to be in July. It's a process. We've done this before on other projects, and I'm pretty sure we can do it here together too. It's just the worst thing one can do is to feel like they're forced to compromise on something they don't really want to see in their community.
Thank you. Well, I've looked at the concept and I am excited about it, actually. I think it's something that's new, it's different, but I see it as a positive step for Blue Lake. I see it as a need. I see it as a village within a village, as I've said before, something that could really enhance the area. And I would not be surprised if it would fill up really fast, just the way Chris has expressed some of his other projects have filled up fast, because Blue Lake is special and people want to live out here. There's nothing for rent, nothing practically to buy now. So I think it would just be, it'd just be a win-win situation. So I'd like to see the direction go forward and have the project go forward, and the details can be worked out. The few changes here and there, however we want to make them, but I think for the most part, the concept, we can agree on the concept of the project. How does the rest of the council feel?
I'd add that, and I appreciate Cash explaining that, because it's like, oh, okay, so there's additional opportunities between now and say December that we have to meet as a community and discuss, the design of it, like you're saying, Cash. So I would add that let's move forward with developing discussions around developing an agreement, that we are in agreement that we're going to work together moving forward, knowing that we're also going to have a couple community meetings, workshops, so that we can formulate basically the final design of what we're looking for down there as a community.
So at what point just the studies come into play, like traffic studies and safety studies, and kind of at what point in the process that will be addressed, so we don't get too far into it.
So, yeah, so is that something that would happen before December, or what is that? Gary, what's the timeline for having those types of studies to meet a conditional use permit, or when does that happen?
Typically, those studies are prepared and submitted as part of the CUP application to provide sufficient information for planning staff to conduct their CEQA review. So as far as that, how that relates to December, I'd have to ask Chris to answer that one.
What?
To go into a CEQA analysis, you can start that, but for a conditional use permit, you actually need to have designs. Is that correct? Or at least like 65% designs to move forward?
Yeah, you have to have at least a site plan, floor plan, architectural rendering concept, so you know what you're analyzing in the CEQA review. You have to have a clear understanding of the project description. And typically that's submitted with the CUP application. And once the application is submitted and determined to be complete is when you begin your CEQA analysis.
I could add a little to that. I think it's also important to note that there be conditions in the development agreement that says that the project has to have an approved conditional use permit, be CEQA adopted. Though all those things has to receive financing in order for any sort of real estate transaction to take place. So the development agreements contemplate milestones that have to be delivered on. They're not open-ended. So any agreement that we negotiate would have those, whatever those milestones are that are important and negotiated between the two parties, have to be fulfilled on for the development agreement to basically take effect and the transaction to close.
Okay, so I feel that they have enough direction from council to move forward.
Continue to move forward with the presentation of a DDA to council to get that ready. You guys are considering the next item is the bringing on some specialized services.
Yes.
Which I think is important. This is a little bit out of our wheelhouse, and there's a lot of opportunities too that we can take part in. And Russ, I think Russ is still on here. he might have some additional needs or concerns or ideas. I won't speak for him.
Okay, so if staff feels that they have enough direction, we can then move on to item 7.
What do you think, Russ?
Yes, I believe there's enough direction. I think the most substantive issue that will occur in the most immediate future will be completion finalization of a draft development agreement, which will have all those contingencies and protections which Chris Dark just referred to, incorporating those and then presenting that ultimately for the council's review and consideration. So I believe that staff will proceed with seeking to create and implement a draft development agreement for both council review and public input prior to execution.
Okay, thank you, Russ.
Excuse me, Evelyn. I've had my hand up for a little bit. I'm sorry I'm out of turn, but my question was about.
I didn't see it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I had a question about public meetings you've been talking about, the series of public meetings of various kinds. I'm just wondering if at those meetings there'll be an opportunity for that Danco will be there, because I'd like to hear from them the full experience that they've had with their other developments. So will that include Danco representatives?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes. I wouldn't have it without them, right? Yeah. That would be key, Lynn. Yes, yes.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Equivocally, if there is such a word. Okay, Lisa, did you have another question? Because your hand looks like it's up.
Yeah, I just put it up. I just based upon this recent conversation, there's a development agreement that's needed, but someone said, I'm not sure that they also, I thought you said that they need to have a approved conditional use permit to enter into a development agreement. Did I hear that?
That's not correct.
Okay, no. That's good. So there are those considerations, the development permit. I guess I don't know enough about what goes into that, because we talk about having these meetings with the public and the community that I think were brought up by you, Elaine, that I thank you very much. So I didn't know if those are going to be sort of wasted if the development per agreement was put in place without that. So it sounds like this conditional use permit, I heard incorrectly. So I just wanted clarification on that the development permit is the development agreement. I'm sorry, my terminology. What are the statutes that will be in there that that will still be able to consider input from the public at that point, you know, for conceptual design and all that. So that's kind of, I don't want to put the cart before the horse with this development agreement. That's what I'm in terms of community involvement.
So just to clarify, the development agreement is so that we have an agreement between the city and Danco agreeing that we're working together and moving forward with this process. And then in addition, Danco will go through a process with the city and the planning commission to develop a conditional use permit and CEQA analysis for the proposed project or a proposed project, which in the meantime, we'll have community workshops to go over that proposed project and take community feedback and discuss basically, you know, the vision of what the community wants to see in the business park. Did that help?
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Summer. Okay, moving on then, we're on item 7, legal services retention agreement with Best and Kriegers, attorneys at law for services associated with the Danco Builders development proposal. This is a discussion and direction item as well. Russ, do you want to go ahead and give us just a little background of why we need to go beyond your services for this project?
Certainly. There are actually some opportunities for the city during the process of negotiating and potentially entering this development agreement with Danco, including the availability of potential grant funds and inclusion of economic incentives and planned development incentives for the city. It's a somewhat specialized area of law. Best and Krieger is a large law firm, not local, of course, but they have attorneys that practice regularly in community development projects of this nature. And I believe their expertise would be in the city's best interest. So would the city be well served to work with and associate with an attorney that specializes in this area of law during the development of this development agreement to make certain that city exacts as much benefit and protection that the city can reasonably anticipate.
Thank you, Russ. Has this group done work in Humboldt County on other projects, to your knowledge?
I believe Mr. Dart has worked with a partner of the attorney that we will ultimately engage for this, a partner at Best and Krieger. She is since retiring. She referred us to another attorney within the firm, but the firm as a whole has done projects of this nature up and down the state of California. Again, they are a large law firm, but they specialize in municipal work and are familiar with these forms of agreement.
They had, we had experience with them. They were representing, the first time we encountered their firm was they were representing the city of Crescent City on a project that we were working on up there. And then they had also, we had encountered them with the project that we're working on with the city of Fort Bragg. So those are our two experiences with, but I think as Russ said, I think the attorney that had been representing city of Crescent City and the city of Fort Bragg is since retired. So not sure who, but they're a large law firm that specializes in affordable housing and representing civic institutions at, like the city of Blue Lake.
Okay, thank you both. Are there any questions or comments from council about this decision?
So what we had asked last time was to see an actual agreement.
Well, so what Russ recommended is that we start out with 40 hours of consultation services with them. He felt that that would probably be adequate to get us to a point where we could have them review the DDA, walk us through the process and give some expertise. But we don't have a defined scope yet until council, we weren't sure if we needed you to take a couple steps before we got to that point, but he felt 40 hours was a good starting point for the consultation process.
Okay. Any other questions from council? Any questions from public as to what the council is proposing to do here? Okay, back to council for direction. Do we want to go with the law firm Best and Krieger's based on the recommendation of staff?
It's not the recommendation though. We're not directing the staff to execute an agreement. We're just authorizing you to allocate hours.
Well, we would need to execute an agreement with them for services.
Okay, so that's again, coming back to, that's what we'd asked for, like we want to see the agreement.
Oh, you want to see the agreement?
That's what we talked about the last time. We wanted to see that agreement before we authorized.
Okay, because usually I have the authority to execute those agreements.
Yeah.
With Russ. So, I can bring back a contract.
I'm only one of four, so let you guys see what you want.
Well, we have the scope of the work, 40 hours of consultation. We have the recommendation of our attorney. So I'm comfortable with giving the manager the direction to execute the agreement.
Do we know what 40 hours looks like?
Yeah.
Budget-wise?
How much are you?
Russ, do you know what their hourly rate is? I'm not sure which attorney they would be recommending for this.
Oh yeah, standard.
And this is also why we need to get to the DDA, because we need to recoup these costs.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Sorry, I I believe, I'm not certain about the recommended partner. I believe 400 an hour was the rate for the partner we'd previously consulted at Best and Krieger.
And this could get us to,
Yeah, and it's possible you might not need the whole 40 either. You know, we do have some agreements that Chris has provided that other cities have used. We've talked with the city of Arcata. They've been willing to share all of their information. Some of this is probably a little bit boilerplate, especially with the different funding sources, with, you know, what needs to be written in. So
That's actually a cap, maybe, or
yeah,
yeah, comfortable with it.
Yeah, the recommendation was if staff is to engage the firm and retain their professional services, they do so subject to a not to exceed hour limit without further council approval.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. All right, so the direction then is to have the city manager work up an agreement with the best Krieger's attorneys at law for services associated with Danco development proposal. All right, thank you very much, staff, on that. And we are now on our consent agenda, the meeting minutes of June 8th.
or is there any comment?
We're taking action minutes of the- No, no, oh, I asked you what I thought.
who made the motion?
Well, we didn't do an
Yeah.
actual motion.
Okay.
Oh, you're just direction. Okay.
No, we're on item 8 now.
Okay.
Right,
I just
right,
wanted
we
to
just
clarify
read
that
that.
it was a directive
Oh.
and not.
Yeah, it was a directive, because
Okay.
it didn't say count. It didn't
Gotcha.
say action.
Okay.
Does that give you enough direction?
Yes, it's totally fine. I just want to make sure I'm writing this down correctly.
Yeah, I know. Okay, motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Okay.
A second.
Motion by Elaine Hogan, second by Chris Kieran to accept the consent agenda. Any further discussion from council? Anything from public? Back to council for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, it passes. Council correspondence.
So you did receive a couple of letters.
Oh.
One
How exciting.
came from Jean Lynch, was left in the drop slot today, and I don't know if you want me to read it into the record. And then one was an email from Lisa Hoover. So I'm not sure how you want this entered.
If they're under 3 minutes, they look small enough. I
Want me to read them?
read them.
And then include them in the correspondence as a packet later.
So this is from Lynch, 420 Greenwood Road on June 28th. Dear Blue Lake Council, please note the information contained in this note and add it to the discussion for the agenda item number 6 of a special meeting for the Blue Lake City Council. As I have noted before in the discussion regarding the low-income housing within city limits, there is a question of Article 34 in the state of California that I would like to have entered into this new discussion. I have added some wording that I found on this matter and would like the council to discuss it further. Article 34 reads, no low rent housing project shall hereafter be developed, constructed, or acquired in any manner by any state public body until a majority of the qualified electors of the city, town, or county, as the case may be, in which it is proposed to develop, construct, or acquire the same, voting upon such issue, approve such project by voting in favor thereof at an election to be held for that purpose or at any general or special election. According to the argument supporting the initiative, a vote in favor of adding Article 34 to the California Constitution was a vote for the right to say yes or no when a community was considering a low-income housing project. The need for community control was necessary because of tax waivers and other forms of community assistance that a public housing project required. Thank you for your attention, Jean Lynch.
So I know this is a really passionate subject for Jean, and Russ, I have to go back to you and ask, are all of the other cities within the state of California going through this process in order to build out housing developments within their communities, such as Arcata, Eureka?
Yes, actually, there are numerous exceptions to the applicability of the constitutional requirement. And full assessment as to its applicability in this circumstance will depend on the final form of development agreement that's actually proposed and considered by the council. But again, there are numerous exceptions to it. The obligation, including exceptions expressly created by the California legislature, one of which contemplates a ground lease structure, which the city has discussed preliminarily. Again, it would be premature to provide you an opinion at this point until the actual agreement is pending and submitted. But again, the exceptions almost exceed the rule at this point in time. A lot is developed from the initial enactment. And so what we contemplate ultimately proposing in all likelihood would be exempt or accepted from the requirement. But again, premature to offer an opinion at this point.
Thank you. Mandy, would you read the second letter from Lisa Hoover?
Yes, this is from Lisa Hoover. Hello, Mandy. You mentioned the need for more tax income when we met. While COVID resulted in loss of tax revenue during this time, Parks and Recreation, retail, the brewery, lager bar, prior to the pandemic, what was broken relative to tax revenue? I would like to see city staff revitalized, so please let me know, A, the extent to which the tax generation you want will support city staff, and B, beyond this, I would like to know the foundation for the need for more tax revenue for the city. I realize that there is a lease with Lake Power Company that is due to expire when that has been a tax revenue, but beyond this, what is the foundation? Also, you mentioned that the state requires low income, or is it termed affordable, housing, and that Blue Lake had postponed initiating this over the years. I would like to better understand what is meant by low income or affordable by the state. I want the tax base to support the fundamental infrastructure for the city of Blue Lake community that includes various elements from maintenance of roads and needed drainage, Blue Lake water, park community facilities, partial law enforcement fees, a portion of the fire district, and public school needs. Expansion beyond what I would call fundamental infrastructure based upon tax revenue warrants public discussion. Details of what else the taxes would support is requested. Please know these other items may indeed have merit for the community. Mandy, I'm asking that the basis for any tax base expansion beyond fundamental infrastructure be outlined for future discussion so that citizens such as myself can discern the contribution or the impact to the Blue Lake community. Thank you. Submitted for the record, Lisa Cooper.
Thank you, Lisa. And I think some of those questions were answered.
I think so
in the course
too.
of our discussion.
And one thing to note that the Blue Lake Power payments are not a tax revenue, it's
Right.
a lease
Right.
payment.
Yeah.
Just to be clear on that.
Yeah, we're not making any taxes.
No, this is, they're leasing land
Yeah,
from the city.
okay, that's good clarification on that. Okay, if there's no other council correspondence, we'll move on to reports of council and staff. We just kind of had our meetings, I know. One thing I did is I did meet with Charis Bowman, who has a very nice write-up about what her timeline is and costs and whatnot for the Emporium. She's in escrow right now with this land. Let's look at this.
She posted that also on Facebook.
Oh, did
on
she?
A few other spots.
Oh, okay.
I'm not on social media, so I'll look at it.
Yeah, I just met with her at the town square just to hear what she had in mind, and it was very interesting. That's why I was wondering about some of that COVID money being maybe loan to people, low interest loan or no interest loan, and certain limit on it. But anyway, because that building obviously needs a lot of work, and but I would like to see it refurbished because it's kind of a little gem in our town. It's got a lot of history and it's very interesting. She's got like good ideas, I think. Did anyone else have any meetings they'd like to report on?
Yeah,
Chris.
our CDA, we have an update on the airport microgrid.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really getting national attention now.
Yeah.
On the July 7th, there's going to be a big press event at the airport.
I see the posts already in for the solar panels.
Yeah.
And they've been
Oh, are they
removing
that
trees and-
far along?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
They
Okay.
expect to be operational by January. So really exciting.
What's the status of the project down the road on Hatchery?
You know, I haven't heard an update on that.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting too.
Anything else close to us that we should be aware of?
Not that I've heard of. So.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Chris. All right, if there's no other reports of council, did staff have any further reports to let us know?
Don't think so at this point.
I had asked you about the property on Hatchery Road.
Oh,
You
yeah,
said
yeah,
that
yeah.
Somebody bought that, a local fellow bought that. And,
Yeah, I saw Kyle was on, but I don't think he's on anymore.
Oh, darn.
Yeah, so so Kyle Boughton bought Hatchery Road. And he would like to introduce himself to council at the next council meeting. He's also interested in development projects on Taylor Way. He's pretty excited about, you know, the direction the city's going and the ideas and the recreation. And he's works also with an investment group who is looking to do some larger scale projects. I haven't heard, you know, what those might be, but I'm assuming that they're along the same types of interests as what the Danco project is, the mixed use development. So he's going to be talking to council and kind of introducing himself and some concepts and giving you an opportunity to ask questions or direct staff and what direction you'd like us to go also.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry I missed seeing his name up there. Or maybe I didn't make a connection.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't.
Very exciting. Future agenda items, item 11. I have the WIOT resolution.
We kind of have that running tally.
Yeah.
And then like the July 6th, we had set at our last meeting.
Right, we are going to have that meeting, I think was acceptable to everyone else. We're going to have the July 6th special meeting. Is that acceptable to everyone? It's right next to it. I know. We have to accept Olivia's resignation and post or make a decision about how we're going to fulfill her position, which I think we don't want to have a special election because that's very costly. So I think we can open it up for applications for people to apply, and what it can be is just a.
Why don't we discuss it about July 6th?
Yeah.
Because that's like outside of,
That's
so
true.
that people can
Right.
comment on it.
Okay.
So
that's
on for
probably-
July 6th, at your last meeting, you have the WIOT resolution declaration, an option for a placeholder if needed for Danco, any Danco discussions or issues, and then this closed session for the manager's evaluation.
And then
And you
let's
had set
add
that at
the-
8 p.m.
Let's add the Olivia's resignation and discussion about kind of next steps.
Yeah. So we should have everything happening open session until about 8 o'clock. And then at 8 o'clock, we'd like to go into closed for manager. And the committee is met already, so we have all the paperwork ready to go for that. We'll get that to you ahead of time.
Well, we won't get that back to you ahead of time, sorry.
Oh, no,
Because I
I can't. Yeah.
Can we bring
let's
some
do-
of last year's stuff too?
I have that. Actually have it right here.
So you'll get all of that too.
But yeah, I'll bring that. Okay, any other future agenda items?
Maybe when we're talking about the vacancy on council, that leaves a vacancy in the negotiating team.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
So
that
you
does.
could fill
Yeah.
that at the 6th.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so let's add that to not only the discussion on what to do about the vacancy, but also
Add a person to the negotiating team.
Yeah.
You probably wouldn't want to.
And then just to keep on your radar, scheduling these visioning workshops and working with Danco and Cash, and if you need any feedback on the format or the location or what kind of activities or anything
Right.
to bring that to us, I guess.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah,
the
but
biggest thing is getting you to a point where we have some agreement. Like I said, we're expending
Right.
a lot of our resources,
Right,
staff time, and it'd be nice to have a way to recoup some of that, so.
Okay.
I know the working sessions and everything are gonna take up a lot of time. Gary will, you know, who might be engineers, planners, everyone in attendance, so.
Okay, very good.
Andy, if I may interrupt, just briefly, there is a specific protocol the council must follow to fill a vacancy if a vacancy has occurred. So I'll communicate with Mandy so we can have that presented to the council at your next available meeting.
Oh, good, thanks. Yeah, thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments? Oh, we're doing so well. I'm so proud of myself. All right. We are on item 12.
I motion we adjourn.
Second.
Summer moves, seconded by Chris Curran to adjourn this meeting of June 29th. Is there any further discussion from council? Discussion from public? Back to council to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you all for joining us. Want to look at, I just happen to have it here. Do you want to packet?